Welcome to Disambiguation. I'm your host, Michael Fauscette. Each week, we interview experts in artificial intelligence, generative AI, and business automation to help business leaders understand how to use these tools for the biggest business impact. In our show today, we're going to take a look at Intelligent RevOps, leveraging AI for sales success. I'm joined by Tony Keskinen, the Chief Product Officer and co-founder of 180 Ops. Tony, welcome.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Good conversation topic today. I told you before I have a real interest in sales, and I think there's been an awful lot of sales tools that have been developed over the last several years that perhaps don't really help the sales team. And once you and I talked a little bit, I saw what you guys are doing with AI. So I think this will be a really interesting show for the audience. Why don't we start by doing an introduction, and then tell us just a little bit about 180 Ops so we have that as the context as we go through the other questions.
Absolutely. Thank you. So I'm from Helsinki, Finland, and my history is in advertising planning and marketing planning. I worked 8 years at Ogilvy Network and then 5 years on the Omnicom side, and really concentrating on customer journey analytics, understanding what's happening along the customer journeys and customer relationships in general. And that brought me to the point where I've now published 5 books about these subjects and 4 best practice articles in AdMap and Work. And the 25 years of learning and doing discoveries with customers, learning where the kind of hidden blind spots are, and what is something that is really important to understand, but is difficult to do with the tools that companies usually have. So that is the kind of founding story of 180 Ops. And the 3 founders of us, we consider this as a peak of our lifetime of learning and doing and turning this history of manual grinding and doing the analytics into something that is easy to apply and available for larger audience. I've been working with telcos, retailers, brands, softwares companies, hotels, airliners, ferry companies, pharma and energy companies. And this is the kind of history that is ingrained in how 180 Ops is actually performing.
Yeah, interesting. So I know we talked a bit about AI and revenue intelligence when you and I chatted about what 180 Ops is doing, and I took a look at the product. So maybe that's a good place for us to start. Could you tell us a little bit about how you're using the AI in the platform and its ability, to get to those actionable insights for the go-to-market teams?
Yes. So if we think about sales teams and salespeople in general, according to Gartner, almost 90% of them are at the verge of burnout. The biggest reason why salespeople leave their jobs is based on Salesforce's state of sales research, because they just experience that the quotas that they are given are impossible. So it's a really high stress working environment, and it's really difficult to make your quotas and understand where the opportunities actually are. So what we are doing is we are combining 3 types of data. We are using customers as sensors, in a sense, that we bring in the data that is collected by the company themselves, and the cornerstone data is billing. The billing is the number 1 data because that's the one data that is in good order in every company.
Exactly.
For obvious reasons. And also because it's not biased. It's actual data about what the companies and customers are actually buying from you. So it gives the view of how are you delivering value to your customers. Well, billing is telling what challenges are you solving with your customers. Now, when we think about using customers as sensors, we collect the internal data and then enrich it with external data about what's happening in the companies. The companies are growing, they are declining, they are firing, hiring, changing strategy, doing M&A, and naturally that has an impact on the customer relationships. Also, the macroeconomic data about the turbulence we are now living in, it's amazing. Like the economic policy uncertainty just hit the all-time high after Trump was elected as a president and started in the office. And energy prices, inflation, interest rates, and so on, they are hiking and changing a lot. So when you are operating in an environment like this, it has an impact on the customers. Eventually, it has an impact also on the customer relationships. So our role is really to make sense of that difficulty. The customers we work with are companies that have wide offering ranges. They have a diversity in their customer types, which means that the complexity is obvious. Very often they also have history in M&A, which means that they are probably running 2 or 3 ERPs, maybe 2 CRMs, and no one really has the situational awareness inside the company that what is happening in the marketplace and how is it influencing us. So our role is really to play around Pareto principle. The business is all about Pareto principle. 20% of your customers deliver 80% of your revenues. 20% of the potential market target customers represent 80% of your potential in the marketplace. 20% of the reasons that customers are struggling with you represent 80% of your churn. So it's really about recognizing the important things that you need to recognize and influence and manage. And that's where we help.
I mean, you bring up the data challenges, and obviously an awful lot of my conversations around AI start at the data. And, obviously AI, high quality data is really important. And as you mentioned, we've continuously fragmented our business systems. We've siloed data, and then we don't always incorporate that external data as well. So I'm curious, if we start thinking about data first, what are you guys doing from an AI perspective to help companies integrate, clean, enrich data, from all those different sources and get to, accurate and relevant data?
The ETL process for each company is done individually. And we operate in an Azure environment, so that means that Azure Data Factory integrations are available to be used for us. In terms of the ETL process, it's really about understanding what we are actually modeling. So companies could, for example, have thousands of SKUs that they are selling to customers. So we need to create a taxonomy or ontology into the data so that we are modeling at the level that makes sense. And making sense is, for example, based on jobs to be done. So when we are looking at customers, the analytics tells us, are we serving a need that customers predictably have, or are we not? Are we serving that need to the fullest point or only partially? Is there more to sell on that offering for that specific customer? So that's the kind of foundation. In terms of ETL process, we are looking into different AI technologies to help us in terms of automating the ETL process. How do we get the data in? How are we cleaning it and so on? Right now, we are doing it with, our CTO has done this for 25 years, more than 20 years. So right now, it's about data maturity. We still need to learn. We need to do more cases so that we learn what parts of the ETL process we can actually automate.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen movement from some vendors to really start to dig in on automation tools. So I'm sure that, in the future, it seems like that's a real opportunity for businesses as they try to figure out their data infrastructure, which, for almost all businesses is way more complicated than it probably needs to be, right? So, one of the things that I thought was really interesting when I was looking at what you guys are doing versus kind of what the market has seen in the past, is kind of moving beyond predictive, which is, the place that we've used AI for quite a few years and machine learning algorithms to try to predict outcomes, and really starting to go towards where I think the real value could be, and that's with prescriptive recommendations. So, can you can you give us a little better feel for how does AI identify and then recommend these next best actions for the revenue team?
Right. Um, how we are approaching is, well, we've created a factory that has production, assembly, and distribution lines. So we have designed and decided what are the end products that we are offering as an outcome, and the end results are what is the potential. Is there a risk of defecting customer in a certain
Mm,
offering? Is there a buying readiness in the customer? Now, how we leverage AI and Gen AI in that is that the heavy lifting, the learning is actually done with machine learning and time series analysis, and that's the part where we
mhm,
really need to do the deep grinding of the data. Um, the technology choice to use machine learning is because it delivers you two outcomes: the actual outcome and the explaining factors. So
mhm,
we can analyze about the correlation and causality in those things, because in terms of management, you need to know what you are managing. So you need
yeah,
also the reasons why this is happening, not just the outcome. And that's where neural networks fail.
mm,
Now, when we have the outcomes done, then we use Copilot, for example, to
mm,
create the recommendations that what is the reasoning, for example, risk, that this customer is at risk because of these things, and these are the things you can do about that and mitigate those risks. um, the heavy lifting delivers us information about, for example, if there are offerings that operate as an anchor to the
mm,
customer relationship. So you can use those anchors. They are diminishing the likelihood of churn in the customer.
mm,
There are offerings that are better suited as kind of accelerators. They are naturally expanding your customer relationship, and those types of
mm,
offerings, they tie the customers deeper into the collaboration, and also expand the offering range,
mm,
and they have a positive impact. Um, prescribing, how do you actually increase the customer lifetime value, and how do you increase the depth of customer relationship, is something that we can help with.
mm,
um, but if we think about customer relationships and offerings, we have uh, three distinct types of customer relationships. We have
mm,
this investment type of customer relationships, where customers are rarely doing major big decisions, and
mm,
those are the hardest ones for us. Then you have repetitive buying, like, for example, wholesales or raw materials or
mm,
services that are offered in a certain interval, and then ongoing invoicing collaborations with the customers.
mm,
These relationship types also have indicators, like, for example, if the customer is starting to decrease the frequency when they are using the offering, or
mm,
we have predicted purchases for a customer and they start skipping those. That's an indication of declining customer relationship, and probably customer buying somewhere else because they are not
mm.
buying from us. And so there are multiple things that can be used as a way of recognizing that we have pain, we have a challenge with an account. The third type actually has to do with the industries, the other companies that are similar. If there are, for example, other companies leaking badly, that's an indication that we just might have that challenge with other companies too. And so these are the types of things that Gen AI is giving you as an answer, that these are the things explaining why you probably have a risk with this account. And these are the things you can do to mitigate those risks.
Yeah, that's it's interesting because you're really starting to break this down into details that RevOps and sales folks would love, but they haven't really had access to in the past, right? The idea that customer behavior in conjunction with the type of product and the stickiness of that product, and as you say, like some products are more anchor products and some are add-ons,
Yeah.
and then looking at that in context to all the customers in retail or all the
Yeah.
customers in wholesale or whatever, right? So you it's almost like you're building out this a behavioral model that helps you with this idea of being prescriptive.
Oh, absolutely. Behavioral and economics is something that I absolutely love,
Mm,
and it's something that is really the I have been doing these customer journey studies and learning about
mm,
customers and their behavior. The patterns are obvious, and what these most tools that are, for example, orchestrating customer journeys or doing analytics, they fail to understand that, for example, the customer who's doing something repetitively is a completely different customer compared to the first newbie buying for the
mm,
first time, making choices for the first time. And when you are cross-selling, let's say, for example, Ansoff matrix that has been published like a very long time ago in academically very solid theory about how much easier it is to sell customers something that they are familiar with,
mm,
or cross-selling to existing customer. The effort level of selling is much lower when you already have the trust of the customer and you already have the relationship. When you are selling something familiar to the new account, it's much higher effort level needed to convey
mm,
that message and sign a deal. And if you are selling something completely new to a new customer, well, then it's probably going to be not a
mm,
positive business case. Now,
right.
that's something that we are now turning into a report. So I believe we are the first one to create Ansoff matrix into a live dashboard telling you that what
Mm,
is the average deal size and time to money by offering when you are selling renewal, when you are selling cross-selling and new customer acquisition. And that tells a strong story about uh, which offerings to you as a door openers, which offerings to cross sell,
mm.
and which never to use as a new customer acquisition offering.
Yeah. Interesting. I mean, you're really talking about building out an information model that lets you um, target your efforts around what's most likely based on the data that you have, historical data, but also behavior data, real time data, all those things. So, as a
Yeah,
salesperson, I could go, wow, it's much more likely if I focus on these four existing customers, I can upsell them or cross sell them versus going out and trying to find three new customers that have a much lower probability for this quarter or
yes.
whatever, right? So it really is it guiding them. And the other thing, and you said this a couple times, I love the idea that journey mapping is starting to evolve, because I admit I've never been a fan of the idea of the word map, because that seems very
Mm,
static, right? I'm building a thing that tells me
yeah,
what the customer's going to do. That, I mean, we all know that's not true, right? I mean, customers don't follow your maps. But
no.
if you were actually basing on behavior and historical data combined with real-time data and behavioral data, you could build a customer journey that was dynamic, that was interactive.
And I think it was around 2010 when I gave up on making an actual map based on interactions, because it became impossible. The number of channels available, the journeys, how they go back and forth, and so on. What I discovered is that at each point, the customers have, again, 80% rule, 20-80 rule, Pareto principle. The mass volume of customers have similar questions. They have similar insecurities and decision points that they need to do, and meeting those, regardless of the channel, is the way to go. So what you are doing is step-by-step process, answering the predictable challenges that or questions that the customers have, supporting their decision making, moving forward is way more effective than trying to map all the interactions and play around that.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting too if you take a look at the kind of the solution space that we're in right now. And I, I think back probably 15 years ago, MarTech was all the rage, right? You had all these different marketing technologies evolving and fragmenting, and there were literally little, almost feature focused products because they were so narrow in what they did. And then over the last 10 years, because we clearly have a sales crisis, a sales productivity problem, and a lot of companies have struggled with this, we started to focus around sales tech. And one of the things that I've seen, whether you're talking CRM or you're talking sales acceleration or enablement or empowerment or, whatever word you want to use, is that a lot of those tools focused around doing what you've been doing, only doing more of it. Right. So like, if 100 calls don't work, I should do 1,000 calls and maybe that'll work or whatever, which is kind of a hope as a strategy, I guess. But so the space is crowded is my point. And so how does AI play a role in really differentiating you from that kind of mass of sales tech that's evolved over the last several years?
Well, if I'm thinking about the questions that we answer, 180 Ops was created to answer questions that are difficult to answer by any other technology. As we also were designed to change the perspective of a user. So bringing to light new perspectives about your customers, like, for example, offering penetration view, and or mapping the customers based on current value and potential value, because the companies that currently consider pyramid type of segmentation as a best practice, you have on top A customers, they are few and they represent majority of your revenue, and then you go to B, C, D, and what it tells you is in the past these customers were valuable. It doesn't tell you anything about their future potential or value. And that has led to a blind spot that no one is actually taking care of. There's no one responsible for currently small value companies with 1 million or more in sales potential. So when we are kind of in a blind spot, we don't recognize a challenge, we can't manage it. So bringing these views into light and pointing out that there's money that belongs to us and there's priorities that we need to pay attention to. It's something that others are currently not doing, and we are differentiating ourselves by doing that. And that's the outcome of 25 years of doing analytics and discovering blind spots, and now we are just turning that into a factory.
Yeah, I mean that is definitely differentiating and saying, look, I can take your existing data, combine this with some other data sources, and really come up with a better, more in depth, and more predictive, prescriptive kind of approach to the way you go to the process, right?
Yes.
But I know. Sorry, go ahead.
In terms of sales tech, we are revenue ops. We think in terms of revenue operations, which is really about bringing the sales, marketing, and customer success data and processes together, because all of those functions have a role to play in terms of creating new opportunities, demand generation, closing deals, making customers happy. And what we really do need is a shared view of what's happening, where the priorities are, so that we can design the processes and collaboration in a way that everyone's doing what they are best suited to do. Like, for example, let's say marketing automation. When you think about that, it's about lead generation, it's about lead nurturing, and so on. Well, let's change perspective and consider that as a customer onboarding technology, supporting the customer after purchase to, along their adoption curve, to support them and advise them for the next best features, and how to make most of that technology. Now, that's something that is done by marketing, and mostly marketing is responsible for managing the marketing automation tools. But that goes deeply into customer success work, and it has potential to, for example, I've had cases where I've been able to decline the churn rate by 50% and call rate by 75% by just meeting the customer's needs by proactive communications, instead of waiting for the pain to come and then customers to contact center.
So you're really talking about the whole process of go to market, not just the sales piece, but how do we incorporate marketing and all the communication capabilities, customer success, all of those parts of our organization around a single data, information model that really helps us
Yeah,
make more intelligent decisions.
yes. What we
Yeah.
really want to do is maximize customer lifetime value.
Mm,
So if you think about Clary and Gong, they, for example, are concentrating on the pipeline success.
mm,
We have a different perspective. We are looking at the customer lifetime value as in total. And then the other perspective is the market penetration in total. Like,
mm,
let's say we are doing the modeling at standard industry classification 3 and 5 level.
mm,
And it's very likely that there are a couple of industries in the marketplace that represent 80% of your potential growth.
mm,
So recognizing those target groups, doing smart segmentation, defining what they actually need that we can serve them with, and then starting to communicate actively, and doing account-based marketing and so on,
mm.
creates the pathways for sales to better get in meetings with customers, get faster pipeline into agreements, and yeah, so definitely it's the whole 9 yards.
Yeah, I mean, having both, or having all of the organization really working with one information model must be a really powerful addition to the way that they normally work, which tends to be siloed,
Mm,
right? Yeah.
that is the
So,
challenge.
yeah, well, yeah, that is. I guess that's always a bit of the challenge. But if you can do something that helps enable that, and you can see the success rates, that must at least
Mm,
encourage collaboration. And yeah. So, one of the things I hear from RevOps and salespeople, especially, they tend to be pretty skeptical, particularly around maybe all the information flow hype and stuff that we've had
mm.
over the last couple of years with AI. So I'm curious, how do you help that revenue team understand and trust the AI's recommendations?
Yes. So in the customer onboarding, it's a really an iterative process where we are modeling and then iterating the results, making sure that they are accurate and they meet customers'
Mm,
expectations. It's also about combining the silent knowledge in the company with the algorithms. there are phenomena that are really difficult to surface with mathematics alone.
Right.
So working with the internal teams and working with for example, internal analysts helps us to create parameters or business rules that then supplement the ways of the mathematics, how well the mathematics alone can deliver value.
Mm.
And that's making sure that well, what we do is facts and evidence based. So when I
Mm.
was saying that we are using customers as sensors and we are modeling every single offering and the potential at standard industry classification 3 and 5 level, it means that in order for us to say that there is potential, it means that there are the actual cases that are
Mm.
proving the point. That's also true in the level of the wallet size that we do, that there's proof for it, there's evidence for it, and that's what we are just bringing live and scaling
Mm.
it up to all accounts, not just the ones that are currently buying.
Mm. So it sounds like there's a certain amount of transparency across the whole organization that's important, but then also demonstrating success and building on
Yes,
the success that they have so that you can, gain more traction with the use of the tools. Yeah, that makes a
yes,
lot of sense. So your solution, I know, focused around at least parts of it around, AI driven automation so that you can help companies with real time decision making. So what are some of the key use cases where AI really helps you optimize decision making speed for sales, marketing, or customer success?
yes. So risk and readiness would be definitely
Mm.
such cases where when there's something happening in the customer relationship and there's a risk, delivering that well, what is our service direction, what we are
Mm.
going to meet by the end of this year is that we deliver right answer to the right person at the right time in an
Mm.
understandable format and in the tools that they use for decision making, which means that it's an intelligence is created with 180 ops, but then it's
Right.
distributed into CRM, and we are creating a mobile app in the later in this year,
Mm.
so that you get the actual notifications about risks in customers, their buying readiness increasing,
Mm.
um, and you get notifications and advice for what to do about it.
Mm.
Um, one of the things that is now coming alive in a month is weekly reports for salespeople.
Mm.
So when we are doing sales performance analytics and analyzing each individual salesperson's pipeline development, we see if there are offers in the pipeline that you have not been reaching out to, like in the past week or two,
Mm.
or something is going old, and or um, you are lagging behind your quota, and there are opportunities that you just haven't contacted yet. So
Right.
it's kind of a weekly message delivered on Friday at noon, telling you how to optimize your next week, how to make
Mm.
most of your next week. And that's something that the AI and machine learning and the hard analytics that we do then turn with Copilot into advice
Mm.
and softer human uh, advice. And yeah,
Mm.
that's important.
Yeah. Yeah, so you're really turning the insights into something that seems really, comfortable, actionable, useful in a real-time environment. So, "Oh, I'm
Yeah.
Friday, I'm thinking about what do I do next week? What do I focus on? Here's all this data that's been presented to me in a way that helps me really map out my, actions over the next week or so
Yes.
and think about where I could spend my time optimally," right?
Yes.
So one of the things that, obviously we've heard in CRM for years about how hard it is to get salespeople to use tools, like
Hmm.
get them to enter the data, get them to do, enter your forecast, update your forecast, all those things, right? So,
Hmm.
one of the promises of generative AI in my mind is to make this easier, make it more natural, make
Yes.
it a more a logical, simplified way of interacting with applications rather than having to manually enter things. What can we automate rather than having to, to dig into forms and cells and all this stuff? I can just talk
Hmm.
naturally or interact naturally. So, how do how are you using mobile and AI and generative AI? How are those coming together in your tool? And I know you mentioned the mobile
Yeah.
app that you have coming to provide a better user interface and user experience for that sales team to get them to
Well,
use it.
that's actually something that we are now working on. Now the tools that record and transcript your meetings and
Mm,
make notes about it and next actions and so on, and they are structuring data that has been incredibly difficult to
right.
really use otherwise. And now using that data as part of the modeling is something that is new, and only because that data is now becoming available. Clary and Gong, for example, they structure the meetings
Mm,
into action points and priorities, and
mm,
that's something that allows us to really also use it in terms of machine learning and neural networks and
mm,
other tools. That's definitely something that is powerful, and we've
mm,
been keeping kind of ourselves in a leash, that we don't go into areas where there are already um, established players who own the market and they are great at it. For example, in terms of when I'm looking at CDP market, a lot of CDPs have gone to workflow design and they are
right.
providing you with email tools and so on. We've decided to stay away from that completely, so that we are only delivering the answers, and we deliver them to the technologies that the company is using, like for example Salesforce or Dynamics, and
Mhm,
then the execution of things is done in those tools. So for example, let's say Agentforce, we deliver data that Agentforce can use inside Salesforce,
right.
um, and or using delivering data that can be used in agentic uh, processes. So
Right.
we stay away from things that others are doing better, and companies
Mm,
already have agreements with with the
yes.
solution providers and so on. So that's one of the approaches that we
Mm,
are deploying. The mobile is something that is really intriguing, and it comes to a couple of points. We are preparing ourselves to be mobile ready.
mm,
That means that number one, the users are using our service with SSO, so we do recognize every individual who's coming to the platform. Now enabling them to define what they are interested in then allows us to serve them personally. And so we are now creating that personalization tool that you can
mm,
personalize. What is your perspective? Are you a salesperson looking to manage your accounts, or are you uh, a offering manager responsible for certain offering and only interested in that? And
right.
then serving you with the copilot and text based analysis and recommendations and so on, and these are all kind of preconditions for
Right.
perfect mobile service. And we have a kind of goal that we are now fulfilling, is that the user experience should be something like McKinsey meets Apple, that you
I like
get
it.
heavy end analytics, but in an Apple usability and easiness and smoothness, and that's something that yeah, that will be a
that's a
game
great way
changer.
to describe. That's a great way to describe it. I think I think if you said that to a salesperson, they would be like, "Yeah, that's exactly what I want. I want it as easy as
Exactly.
possible, and everything complicated happens behind the scenes." Right?
Yes.
Makes
And
sense.
everything that it seems like natural and fluent and easy, it just means that all the heavy lifting has been done for you.
Yep. Yep, that makes sense. Well, so on the other side of this, obviously we've heard a lot about the power of AI through especially over the last couple of years, but there's also this kind of other side of it, right? So how do we how do we help companies, with their compliance, with data privacy regulations? I mean, you have GDPR in Europe and California. We have CCPA um, and there's also some ethical issues, bias issues, that sort of thing. So how how do you help companies deal with those things?
By staying away from there.
Yeah, that's actually probably the best advice you could give somebody.
No, we made from the get-go, we made a decision to concentrate on account-based data.
Right.
Concentrating on account-based data means that we are managing data that is about companies, not people.
Right.
So GDPR and those privacy regulations, they don't apply to us.
Right. That makes sense.
We are, though, operating with highly sensitive data, which means that the data security policies and everything needs to be really strict.
Right.
And we, for example, are providing our service as a containerized service inside the customer's own Azure network. So all the data stays in the customer's own environment and never leaves it. So that's the kind of level of protection that and security that we are supplying customers with, as well as SSO, so that you have the Microsoft strong identification requirement when you are logging in, and all the user access management is done with a Microsoft AD.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, and you're that makes sense from your focus as well. The fact that it's account based, so we're really talking more from a security perspective than a privacy
Yes.
perspective. Yeah, that makes sense. Well, so we're getting close to how much time we've allotted for this today, and how long I try to keep the show. But there's something I really am curious about from your perspective, because you really are looking out, like, where does the product go? Well, how do you see revenue intelligence, AI driven revenue intelligence, evolving over the next few years? I almost hesitate to say 3 years or 5 years, or because it might be
Yeah.
6 months the way it's been lately, but how do you see, what emerging AI capabilities are you really excited about?
Well, agentic is definitely one of those. Another that I'm really hopeful about and really looking into is creating scenario tools. Creating tools that, for example, let's say setting up a sales budget for salespeople.
Right.
It's not an easy task when you think about the current economy and how much is changing. Is 10% growth okay? Is it too low? What would be the actual figure that would make sense, and what's influencing that? Those are the kind of questions that currently pretty much go unanswered. If you
Right.
think about, for example, when COVID hit the markets, companies operating in e-commerce hit the kind of super cycle. Customers were buying only online, and the physical stores were closed, and so it's also about adaptability. That when you have a major disturbance in the marketplace, you need to be able to adapt to that. And and set your goals and KPIs and incentive models and everything according to the conditions of the marketplace. That goes up and that goes down. But creating these types of scenarios is something that we are looking into in the fall. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's that's one of the things I've looked at this a few times, and we've talked about it on the show a few times around synthetic organizations. The idea that you could build a scenario, a way to test all these different plans and strategies with representations of the data and with an organization that mimics kind of what you're doing in your business environment and all those things. So yeah, that's really interesting, actually. Well, so that's all the time we have today. But before I let you go, Tony, I'd love to get some help from you for the audience. Who would you recommend, like a thought leader, an author, something that you think that would be really beneficial for the audience to check into and that they'd enjoy?
Well, just simply too many.
So we have a list.
I'm currently reading Paul Greenberg's Commonwealth. Then Brian Solis is amazing. The authors that have taught me a lot are, for example, Nassim Nicholas Taleb, and all his production is amazing. Black Swan was just the first one, Anti-Fragile, and so on. Absolutely something that is changing your perspective about the world around you and how you are living your way around it. Then a couple of behavioral economists. Rory Sutherland he's a creative guy running Ogilvy's as a creative director, and I used to work with Rory way back, and he's been doing great job in the area of behavioral economics, and his book Alchemy is absolutely amazing. Everyone should read that. That will change your perspective on the world and the opportunities and possibilities. Dan Ariely on the behavioral economics side, also something that is everyone should read. Dan Ariely.
Hey, great. Very, very good recommendations. And I admit I am intrigued by behavioral economics and have been doing a little bit of research there myself. So thank you very much. And Tony, thanks for joining today. Really good show, really interesting information. So thank you very much for coming and sharing with the audience.
Oh, this was wonderful. Thank you so much for you.
And that's the show for this week. Thank you all for joining us. Remember to like, share, and subscribe to the show. If you enjoy the show, please leave us a review to help others find us. For more research on AI and other software, check out arionresearch.com. If you're an expert in AI, generative AI, or business automation, either as a provider or an end user, email your information to disambiguation@arionresearch.com. Don't forget to join us next week. Disambiguation is an Arion Research production. I'm Michael Fauscette, and this is the Disambiguation Podcast.